Good afternoon. So I'm going to go through my PhD live, simply using a lot of my photos. So hopefully not to make you sleep. So as you know, probably I'm a weatherman. So first of all, sorry for the rain today. I hope you have brought your umbrella. I didn't. So how did it all started with this weather? I always feel that passion is something that you have to be a little bit crazy about. Sometimes you can't really explain why you love it. And when I was 9 years old, we had a typhoon signal number 10. I felt it was very scary, and I didn't understand why it happened. So I turned on the TV, I saw all this destruction, and then I saw this guy explaining what happened, and I felt, oh, it's quite interesting. So some white stuff on this graph is spinning around, and Hong Kong is in the middle. So I thought, it's interesting. I want to know more about it. So I started exploring what is it about weather. So I was a bit of a nerd as well when I was young. I would visit some of the forums. If you know, there's this underground who always criticize us. They have forums and they have weather fans that is very passionate about weather, and they have very technical discussions. But of course, I will also refer back to the official weather website to check out the weather. And then I knew about the open day they do every year in March. So I went there as well, and I also got an autograph from the director, who was Lam Chiu-ying. He was very famous, still very active in the society, always giving talks. And I believe he's one of the guest professor in CUHK at the moment. So he kind of inspired me. And then, you know, as a nerd and weather fans, we love typhoons. And when typhoon comes, when I was young, I would get a pen, get a paper, and draw the track. Is it going to come to Hong Kong? And also, I thought about, so, you know, when you were young, you sometimes have to write what is your 我的志願. So I thought of this as a job as well. I didn't want to have a job that is just about money. Somehow, maybe it's influenced by my parents because they are businessmen. They always talk things about money, investment, and I feel it's not really what I want. I want to have an impact in the society, something that the society can feel what I do. So I was lucky to have a kind of a quite clear passion from the young age. And I knew it was quite narrow, but I still pursue and do some research. And I found this vacancy in the Hong Kong Observatory back about 10 years ago. So it says that I need a bachelor in physics, maths, or nuclear science. And also, you also need a master in physics, maths, nuclear science, computer science, electrical engineering. So I start pursuing, and so I did my high school in the UK. So this is when I was in the UK. It was near Birmingham. So I chose the relevant subjects. And the one thing that stands out will be music, maybe, because I actually like music as well. I even thought about being an orchestra conductor when I finished my study. But I felt it was too competitive, and I don't think I'm gifted for music like Beethoven. So let's just go for the more realistic science path. So I took physics, maths, and geography. So here start my uni life. I went to Imperial College London from 2009. As an undergrad student, I'm sure you all experience, we have no idea what the lecturer was talking about. with all the blackboards full of equations. But I still, let's just revise and work hard to not to fail the degree first. But the good side was that as a physics student or science student at uni, we have a lot of cool experiments. I think here we are playing with some liquid nitrogen and some electronic stuff here. But of course, we, as I mentioned before, not to waste the uni life, so we still have activities like hanging out, playing music, and finally graduating from Imperial College in the Royal Albert Hall, which is a very nice hall. And then I was so lucky to got to know there's an internship offered by the Hong Kong Observatory, and I was very lucky to got the offer. So it was already at the end of my bachelor. So I flew back in the summer and did about 2 months of internship. So here I was looking very young, innocent, doing the PhD. And this balloon is actually in King's Park, where they release the balloon up to the air, take data twice per day. And also, of course, people always relate us to TV, and we visited the TV studio, had a play. So before the end of the bachelor, I was thinking that, since I was in the UK and I always heard about Oxford, Cambridge, so why not give it a try? Although I know I'm not the brightest student of the year, and I still want to keep my option open to other jobs, but somehow I wanted to try Oxbridge, and I knew it's hard. So I looked up on their website and I found this really cool subject called nuclear engineering. So I know, because this is so exotic, no one would apply. So maybe just me applying. So the offer must be easier. So I applied. I didn't know what would I do if I finished this degree, because there's no nuclear related job in Hong Kong. But at first I thought I wouldn't get it, because by the end of my bachelor, I still haven't heard anything. But suddenly I got this email during my exam for my bachelor, and then, okay. So it was a turning point, because otherwise I might have just start to pursue other masters or stay at Imperial. So I did this weird masters. We also visited some of the nuclear power plants in the UK. We need to wear all this white dress code so that you are protected from the radiation. But at the same time, I had a good time in Cambridge for my masters. We went to Mabel's. And then MPhil in Cambridge, and I believe in Oxford, it's only 1 year. So time flew. And I started to think whether I should get a job or a PhD, because I think just like Professor Chen, I always heard the scientists from cartoons, and I think it's so cool. And we sometimes also got PhD teacher in high school as well. So I thought of let's get a doctor, but I didn't really know what they are. So I was thinking whether should I start applying jobs or PhD, because friends that were not considering PhD, they already started to apply jobs, especially banking, UBS, Goldman Sachs, and starting to get offers. So I felt that I was a bit slow in application. I have to apply something, but either jobs or PhD. So at this stage, I was in a slight dilemma, because when I started to think really hard about PhD, I felt that I was not 100% sure if I should do it. And there were a few reasons. First of all, I did consider finding a job, because most of the friends have already started to have job offer. And I felt that a PhD seems to be too long, because even if you are quite smooth, it will take about 3 to 4 years. And my friends would have already, as Professor Chen said, promoted, vice president or something. And then for PhD, I heard from friends that you could be too specialized. Just like the previous presentation, you will be overqualified but could have no experience. So I did have a search around, jobdb.com. At that time, it was very bad, and all the jobs are either you need a bachelor and 3 years experience, or a master, or a license for engineering. I thought, where's the PhD requirement? You can't find a job if you have a PhD. And at that time, I didn't really think about academia as well. So, but there are many reasons then I thought, yeah, maybe I should do it. First of all, I still love climate. And then I found a very good professor that have a list of climate projects. And it's Cambridge, and I got the offer because the professor is very quick. He replied to my email very quickly and said, yeah, he was interested. And at the same time, at that time, I did try some job application, but I got no luck. I didn't find a job at all. I applied to some of the electrical company, but they also did not reply to me. I think partly because I haven't got the UK passport, because at that time the immigration, the visa stuff is getting hard. So I didn't get any job, and I still want to pursue my dream to get into Hong Kong Observatory. So I thought that a PhD might be an extra strength to my CV if I got the PhD, and also climate related. So I think all these tick the box that I should go for it. So I started my PhD in 2013. So just a bit about my life. So this was year one, and I had my first poster session. I started to have some preliminary results. We got a cool office, but in the panel discussion, I always said, yeah, you have an office, you have some colleagues around you, but the project was quite lonely. So I was sitting in this corner, facing the screen all the time, writing codes. And I think for Oxford as well, at the end of the first year, we have to write a report to have Fiverr, so you verify the research direction and some preliminary results to some of the internal examiners. And so not just about work in PhD, I think, and I personally love entertainment. So I always go to formals. You know that we have 31 colleges, so usually one of the dreams for us is to go to all 31 colleges by the end of your student career. So, and I did it. I finished all 31. We wear gowns like Batman, and we cycle with the gown as well. And of course, I wanted to try the rowing because I heard that they are quite famous, and it was fun. It was fun. And by second year, I did not think anything about finding jobs because I was already quite busy with the PhD, and I always think that times are ticking. I don't want to take 6 years to finish my PhD. So I play hard, but I also work hard. In the second year, more traveling. So thanks to my supervisor, he recommended a lot of places for me to go and visit. So the first one was this center here, ECMWF. It's actually European Center for Medium Range Weather Forecast. Just bear in mind this center, because this is a very top institute for weather forecasting. It is actually funded by the UN and is situated in Reading. I just went there for some of the courses that they provided for anyone, but the stuff was so difficult that everything just flew off my head. And then I had the chance to also visit Prague for a conference. It was such a nice city, and the food was cheap. I tried all the top 10 restaurants in the TripAdvisor. It was great. It was a great experience. And I also met some good scientists there. And very, very luckily, after some obstacles, I got my first publication as well with my supervisors. Yeah, I think for PhD, you have some sense of accomplishment when you see your baby is born as a paper. After facing the manuscript for many, many, many nights, you can actually read it. So I started to, because I was still passionate about observatory, and I saw that they are hiring, and I applied, but I knew I still have 1 year. So I very, very luckily I got the offer. It was a miracle. It was the first miracle. But dilemma happened because I still have 1 year, and there were two problems. The Hong Kong Observatory can't let me defer the offer, can't let me postpone the starting date. They need me to start the job right away. And if I reply in the future, I'll be considered as a new applicant. But for Cambridge, they are so stubborn. They do not allow me to take part-time. They do not allow me to not be in Cambridge, and I cannot postpone my deadline. So what happened? It was the toughest moment because I don't want to give up any of them. But third year goes on because the offer is kind of in the middle of my third year that they need me to start the job, and I went to Hamburg, but then I have to pack because I decided I still wanted to take the offer, but let's see how my PhD will go. I decided to maybe finish it in Hong Kong. And then second miracle happened because in my Hong Kong Observatory job, there's 2 parts of training, and between the 2 parts, there's a 3 to 4 month gaps where I'm useless to the observatory. So I applied for an OP leave, and they granted me. So I went back in 2016 for just 1 term, but of course not enough. So I have to work while do my PhD. And finally, I made it. So in the 2017, I had the FIVA approved, and miracle also happened that my second publication got published after 3 years of being rejected, and the hardbound and the graduation happily, and I hope I did my parents proud. So finally, what do I do now? We have 4 main branches in Hong Kong Observatory, and I'm now in the warning and forecasting services. So I'm a forecaster, so my working hours is actually not 9 to 6. It's always changing. It's like nurses, we have shifts because we work 24/7. So our job includes forecasting, monitoring, issuing typhoon signals that everybody loves, rainstorm warning like yellow, red, and black, and also answering media inquiries. And sometimes you might be on the news as well. So that's the website. You will see what I do is to make the 9-day forecast and also the local forecast, and sometimes writing blogs, and colleagues will also be on the TV. And I think lastly, to conclude, is that as a PhD student, and on behalf of PhD students, we made it. We learn more and more, but about less and less. We know everything about nothing, but together we form a grand team of experts. And I believe as a PhD, we have the authoritative voice of knowledge, of the truth, and maybe wisdom. So people actually listen to you and your advice. And I believe as a PhD, you have the responsibility to contribute to a better society. So let's inspire guys of greatness. Sky is not the limit, and I hope good luck to your studies. Thank you.
Hi, I'm happy that you have fulfilled your dream.
Thank you.
As well as complete your PhD studies. My question is, what's your secret of finishing your PhD in 5 years or 3 years?
4.
4 years.
So the first half of my PhD, it was my passion, but also that I really don't want to have more than 3 years in my PhD. Partly because I didn't really get a lot of funding. My parents are really kind of funding me for my PhD, so I didn't want to spend too much time. So every day I was thinking, yeah, 3 years is my deadline. Don't just have longer. Because I also have a friend in Cambridge that is kind of doing it for a long time, and then he finally gave up. So I didn't want that to happen. The second half, when I got the job, was that I really want to finish that because it was impinging my free time. When I was on shift, I was very tired already, and when I'm off, I have to sit down in my room and do the PhD. It was getting a bit, it was a struggle. So I really want to just get that done. So that was my motivation, really.
If you don't mind, I have a follow-up question. Who decide whether you can graduate with that PhD? And does it have any relationship with your 2 publications? Thanks.
So I think for all PhD, you need Fiverr. For Cambridge, we have 2 examiners. One is the internal, is a professor from geography department that really doesn't know me. The second one is from an expert in the field, but it's from other universities. So if I go back, so these are the 2 examiners. So they will drill you 3 hours, page by page, line by line, why you wrote that, why you described that, why you use this method. The results, somebody has said this, why you say this. So you have to defend your theory and make sure that they believe in you. And if they agree, then you will probably pass with minor corrections. Minor corrections mean some parts will need some more explanation or description. If it is major correction, there may be a whole chapter. The idea is not very solid, and you might have to repeat some of the experiment. So usually it's minor correction. They give you maybe 3 months to correct. You submit again, the examiner will read again, and if they approve, then you got a PhD. For the publication, it's actually, I was quite lucky because the first year report contains some of the material is already publishable. So my first 2 chapters was from the first publication, and then the 3rd, 4th chapter was from the 2nd publication.
Okay, second question there. Yes.
Wondering if you might elaborate a little bit on the process to identify a potential supervisor and getting them to accept you. Thank you.
Oh, great. So I haven't had any connection because, as you know, the MPhil was nuclear engineering, completely unrelated to climate. So I was just looking at the website, even for Oxford. I applied to Oxford and they rejected. I just email professors. So first of all, I go to the relevant department where they do climate because they don't really have a climate department. So for Oxford it's physics, for Cambridge it was geography. And then I find suitable professors. They usually will describe what their research is. And if I find their research is quite interesting, I will then email them that I wanted to follow up on your interest or research, and then I will describe what I have done before, what is the relevant skills or experience I had. And of course, I mentioned my internship in the observatory, and and then you will see some of the replies are more positive, some are not very positive, and some are quite depends on if you have funding, because they don't want to take up a student without funding. Some, for example, Oxford. Yeah. So the one I had is really quick. He said that it's okay to take up if you can fund yourself. So so he got back to me, and then we had a Skype interview. And then if he is positive, he at that time for me, he already described the project and the research proposal to me. Because when you apply through the big system in a uni, you have to submit a research proposal. So you really have to discuss with the potential professor that what you're going to do, have a framework, and then you apply through the system.
Okay, cool. So let's thank Andy again.